So this is Your Humble Feet Are Your Foundation is the name of this class, and it's August 20th, 2022. And I called it the humble feet because really our feet, being such small little structures, have such an enormous impact on how we feel in the rest of our body. We all know what it's like to have, sore feet, and your whole body kind of aches. So, our feet are what carry us through our life, and they hold up our weight. And really, they have so much to do with our sense of balance. And, they also give us the ability to move forward in life. So there's we don't normally walk backward. We're moving toward what we're interested in, what we're being pulled toward in life. So it has a lot to do with movement toward or movement forward. And sometimes when we really feel stuck, we can just sort of feel like we're frozen in our legs and feet. So there's a whole emotional component to the feet and the legs as well. So it's just interesting to note that the feet are so highly proprioceptive, meaning that there's between 100 and 200,000 nerve endings in the bottoms of the feet. So they're very rich and proprioceptive. If you've ever spent a day on a boat, you can really become aware of how much your feet are having to negotiate small little micro movements, which then you might feel in the rest of your body. Your legs can actually feel that the next day. So they are constantly sending sensory information from your feet to your brain to make subtle little adjustments so that when we stand and walk and run, that we know how to navigate the different surfaces that we're making contact with. So there's this proprioceptive feedback loop that takes place just in milliseconds with every single step we take. So I'd like to just show a little anatomy of the foot so we have a clear understanding, not too detailed, but you can see how this design has this beautiful arch. And that's what we would look for in a healthy foot. Now, what supports that arch are these 3 dots here. I put little markers on them. It's the tripod. So the heel and the middle of the big toe and the middle of so these are kind of stabilizers. This part of the foot stabilizes. The heel is what is sort of the root, the anchor. So this has a stabilizing movement to it. And what someone was just mentioning is that if we tend to have just a little bit more pressure on one side of the foot or a little bit more pressure on the other side of the foot, that changes the whole distribution of weight. These little tiny bones here are really not meant to do so much. They're kind of bird-like, actually. They're not meant to do so much weight bearing. You can see that the heel and this talus bone right here, this is very significant. 100% of your body weight comes through this bone right here. And so these are meant to do the primary weight bearing. And then these toes, like I said, have a little bit of a stabilizing influence, but also pushing off. So today, what we're going to be exploring is some real micro movements so we can start to get that balance back in so that we're not a little bit more weighted on the outside or on the inside, because that can really start to create pain and extra stress on the ligaments. It's very common. Let me just show you on my clipboard here. If the foot rolls, this was what we would call a dropped arch. And if it starts to roll in like that, then all of a sudden we're putting a lot more stress and pressure on the inside part of the foot. But the same can also be true if we're a little more rolled on to the outside of the arch. So we're going to be balancing all that today. And what I'm going to be asking you to do, which is kind of an unusual thing, is to put pressure with just the big toe, just the next toe, just the next toe. We're going to try to differentiate out each of the toes as if we were playing a piano, because that, even though it's not something that we normally do, it's something that it would be great if we could have a little more differentiation in our toes so that our foot doesn't become like a clump. We don't want to have like a horse hoof for a foot. We want to have a mobile, flexible, stable, but flexible foot. And it's often a stiffness, especially that's happening at the ankle, that doesn't allow for enough flexibility through the foot for it to really be a spring system. Because what we want is when we take a step is for this to act like a spring system so that we're able to actually have some buoyancy in our step. So we're going to think of that tripod, which are those 3 points that I showed you. And so let's just begin standing. I'm going to have us do a little bit of centering in standing and feel so that we can contrast at the end what it feels like and where we are on our feet. So just come to a place where you can stand. And just begin to drop your awareness down into your feet and legs. This is going to be a grounding and a centering practice. Just allow all of yourself to stop the fast moving motion of your life right now and just have this sense of contact with the ground. And I invite you to just begin to find your center. Perhaps you want to put your thumb of one hand on your belly button and with the fingers pointing down so they're on the belly, and just start to connect with your center here. The center of gravity is about 2 inches in from your navel. And just notice where you are on your feet without any judgment. Just notice if you feel a little more on the outside of one foot, a little more on the inside, and you can kind of start to roll a little toward the outside of your feet and a little toward the inside of your feet. Just explore. Move your body back toward your heels. Just see, am I more toward the front of my foot? Am I more on my heels? And then see if you can discover your toes, like really wiggle each toe as if you're inviting, if you were playing the piano with your toes, can you actually begin to let each toe touch a piano key and just feel the sensations of your toes? We're really going to be paying attention to sensation and waking up the feet, just allowing the sensation of toes scrunching, wiggling, and then let your toes just relax, soften, spread. And then just thinking of that tripod, the heel as being one point, the center of the big toe, and the little toe as being the other 2 points. Just notice, are you more toward the big toe side of the tripod? I notice mine are a little more toward the big toe. Are you more toward the little toe? What would it take to kind of organize your feet in such a way where you could feel that the balance on all 3 points was present? And then without holding anything in your feet, that was just an invitation to discover, because we're going to do a lot and then feel at the end what kinds of changes have occurred. But as we're standing here, let's just get a sense of our length. So the feet are really the foundation for the length of the rest of the body. It's like, just notice any place where there might feel like a collapse. Maybe the chest is pulled forward. And just coming into a sense of what I call dignified length. So when we're in our dignity as human beings, we feel our hearts are open, our chest is open. We feel grounded in our feet and our legs. It's like, what for you would feel like your dignified length right now? And we think of standing in our dignity. What are you standing in? What does your life stand for? We have these interesting expressions of she doesn't have a leg to stand on, or she's a pushover, or stepping into it. All these phrases, putting your best foot forward. All these phrases are indications of how much our feet and our legs have to do with our sense of being grounded and being purposeful, being centered in standing for something. And just notice what that's like for you. What am I standing in? Do I feel supported in my legs? And then get a little more curious about one leg compared to the other. So we'll just weight shift so that one leg is taking full responsibility of the job of supporting you. You can still toe touch with the other one for balance, but just give full weight to one leg and just notice, how much do I trust that leg? Is there anything that I don't trust? Does it feel wobbly in the ankle and the knee and the hip? And then shifting over to the other leg, and then just feeling, do I feel supported on this side? How is it different? Take your time and just really get curious about your own body, and then come back to two legs. And just notice if there was shared responsibility between the two legs of support, what would that feel like? And I really drop my awareness into the bones of my legs and let the muscles just kind of hang on the bones, but really feel that contact, the bones to the earth. There's sort of a sense of quiet solidity in the bones. You might even have the sense of extending little feeder roots down into the earth, feeling that deeper, larger connection with the earth. And just notice as you begin to settle into your feet and your legs, what else in your body starts to relax. So let's now come on to the floor. So you can lie on your back. And just getting comfortable. You can start with your knees in a bent position. So again, a lot of these movements we're going to especially start with are very small and very intrinsic. But that's the difference that makes all the difference, because we're going to be working at a level of precision and delicate accuracy that begins to stimulate things in your feet that may have, for whatever injury or whatever habit of the way you balance yourself, may have sort of been unsensed for a while. So you're not going to be breaking a sweat here, but it is going to require a certain amount of focused concentration, and but make it fun, because really it is fun to discover all these different movements in our feet. So let's start on the right foot. I'm just going to invite you to gently lift the heel, keeping your toes connected to the earth. Lift the heel of your foot and just pivot it out to the right, and then place it down. We're just working with the heel at this moment, and then slide it. When it's placed back down, just slide it right back to the center again. And do that a couple more times, just gently lifting the heel. And this is all about just feeling sensation. So you can leave your thinking mind at the door, leave it to the side for a moment, and just using your sensing, body sensing. Lift the heel, pivot it out to the right, and then place it back down. And now go ahead and lift the heel and pivot it the other way, in toward the center, and lower it back down. And do that one a few times, just lifting the heel, the right foot, pivoting it in toward the center and placing it back down. And, you know, our minds often tend to dismiss small, subtle movements as being insignificant. But I'll tell you, it's the exact opposite. It's these small, subtle movements that actually have a reorganizational effect on our body. So just see if you can really just let go of any idea that this is really about less is more. So now go ahead and lift the heel, and then just see if you can pivot it out to the right and then into the left, just keeping the contact point with your toes and swiveling the heel out. And you might really feel and sense, get curious about what that connects to in your lower leg, what it connects to. Maybe you even feel it up into your hip.
Do you have your heel on the ground when you're pivoting back and forth?
No.
No. Okay.
You have toes. Just your toes. Just your toes are making contact, and it's your heel that's lifted, and you're pivoting it in and out. So someone mentioned that they're feeling some cramping. Now that's pretty normal to have cramping, especially in the calves. So this is actually a good movement for that, but you may have to do it way, way, way less in the beginning until the cramping begins to relax a little bit. So there's always a level of movement. So rest your foot while I just say this, because you've done enough. There's always a level of micro movement that you can do to start with that's getting the same movement, but at a volume that is not exciting the muscle to go into a further cramp. So as you're doing this movement, you're going to be communicating to the muscle how to relax, but in the first few minutes, you have to kind of tone it down enough so that it doesn't elicit a spasm. I hope
That's
that
true then for
helps.
the foot itself, because I wasn't feeling cramping in my calf. It was in
Oh,
my
yeah.
foot.
Okay. Yeah. And the foot too is also another place. And you're going to probably experience that sometime through some of the movements that we're doing. Again, as soon as you begin to feel any sensing of cramping happening, just pause and see how much less can I do. And you will find yourself working through cramps pretty quickly as long as you honor that in the beginning. Okay, so let's go to this next one. We'll stay on the right side. So I want you to see if you can now differentiate out what would be your toes. I'm gonna just, for those of you who want to see it, remember I showed you these long ends of your toes. Those are called your toes. But this midsection right here would be the ball of your foot. So just so you can feel the difference, everyone come stand on the ball of your foot, what would be called the ball. And so you can feel that you could stand on the ball of your foot, which is the mid portion of your foot. And if you wanted to, you could also lift your toes away from the floor. So you can feel how there's a difference. So just stay on the ball of your foot for a moment and lift your toes and then lower your toes. It's like you've got your foot in a high heel. So the heel's lifted off the floor and you're just lifting your toes and lowering your toes, just sensing that the ball of the foot is staying anchored and you're just differentiating out your toes. Okay? So now that you know how to do that, we're gonna go ahead and have you, we're still on the right side, lift the toes of the right foot, only the toes. And now go ahead and lift the ball of the foot. So the only thing really is that's touching is the back of the foot and the heel. And now lower the ball of the foot and then lower the toes. So we're teaching a very interesting differentiation to your foot, how it can feel, how to just lift the toes and then lift the ball and then lower the ball and lower the toes. And just repeat that a few times until you feel like you can really begin to feel, sense, and understand through sensation how to begin to do those things in sequence. Toes, ball, ball, toes. Okay, and then relax that. Still on the right side. Now I want you to see if you can only lift your right big toe. So all the other toes stay on the floor, except for the right big toe. And here's where you might have to really be gentle with cramping tends to happen. You have to do even just one piece of paper width lift of your big toe. And then lower the big toe back down. That one more time, just lifting the big toe. All the other toes stay planted. The big toe is called the big toe because it's got a very big job. So we really want to have it informed about how to move, because it often is one of those structures that can become rigid. And if it's not able to do its big job of pushing you off to move you forward when you walk, then other parts of your feet are having to become more stressed. Okay, so you've been lifting your big toe, and now keep your big toe on the floor and lift all the other 4 toes. So big toe stays anchored and just the other 4 toes lift. Becoming interested in
So if I'm laying down, I can't actually really tell if I'm keeping that big one down.
Yeah.
So can we just sit up? We can sit up to look at it.
You can't sit up to look at it.
Sit up to look at it.
I don't know why I'm getting an echo.
I don't know why I'm getting an echo.
I think you'll have to mute yourself.
You'll have to
again.
mute yourself again.
So you can sit up to look, but it's more important that you feel. And I don't really care if it happens right now, because just your intention to do it is already sending muscle activation. So just keep working on it, just getting really curious. What happens when I lift? So we're going to alternate, by the way, now, so we can go back and forth, and hopefully you'll begin to feel this little shifting from lifting just the big toe. If you're lifting just your big toe, you're probably going to feel a little more shift of your weight on a subtle level to the outside of your foot. And then when you transition to lifting your toes and keeping your big toe planted, you're going to feel a little more shifting toward the inside of your foot. So that's one indication that you're beginning to discover in your body how to differentiate out the 2 sides of your foot. Slow, slow, intrinsic. You can make this so like micro. It's really, think of all these 36 little bones, and you're just communicating to all the little ligaments in there. It's the least amount of effort needed to just feel. And that's another way to feel more, is to do less, because when we try to make it too big, we're turning on too many muscles. So these are real intrinsic. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, someone says they have to hold their other toes down to lift the big toe, right? So again, don't be too hard on yourself, because we're not used to doing these kind of differentiations out with our foot. The next one we're going to do is even more challenging, but just the fact that you're engaged and attempting to do it is already beginning to set your body up for the ability to do it. So my sister, who's a Waldorf school teacher, she had a kid in one of her classes that was born without arms. And this guy, what he could do with his feet was just simply amazing. He could write notes to his mother. He could actually throw a frisbee with his foot. He could actually play piano with his feet. I mean, so it's possible to do so much with your feet, almost like your hands. It's just that our hands are much more trained. So let's just get in beginner's mind and see, what happens if? So now I'm going to have you only put pressure like think of your foot in the sand right now. You're still on your right side. I want you to only press like you're trying to make a deeper imprint in the sand with just your right big toe. It's like you're just trying to press, not to the place of cramping, it's like all I want to do is make my big toe have a little bit deeper imprint in the sand, and then relax it. Do it a couple of times. Each time you do it, you're making that neural connection, brain to feet, feet to brain. And then go to your next toe. So the next one would be the fourth toe. This one I found hard to do when I was doing it myself. Just begin to attempt, just see, can I do it? And maybe other three toes participate. That's okay. You're just exploring. We don't have to be perfectionists here. We're just really getting into curiosity. You're just pressing the fourth toe. The more you practice this, the better you can get at it. The beautiful part of just this one toe is it connects up into the ankle. So you're communicating with the ligaments around the ankle. Do the next toe, so the third toe. Just putting a little deeper imprint into the sand. Pressing and releasing. The fourth toe. I should say the second toe. It's the one next to the pinky toe. And then the pinky toe, the little toe. And some of you may have found this really challenging. It's not easy to be that specific and that precise. Okay, now we're going to straighten the left leg. We'll go to the left leg in a minute, but just straighten the left leg. And this time I want you to lift the toes on the right foot. Your knee is bent on the right and you're keeping your heel connected to the floor. Lift everything except the heel. So when I say toes, it means you're bending at your ankle. The only thing that's touching the floor is your heel on the right. Now, imagine that you're grinding a cigarette butt out. So you're kind of digging your heel into the floor. Your toes are going in and out, and you're just pivoting right at that ankle joint, really digging that, grinding that cigarette butt. Now, from here, pivot your toes out to the right. So your toes are pointing away from the midline, and drop the little toe edge of the foot, that whole side where the little toe is. And see if you can imagine you're still at the beach and you're going to scoop some sand, and you're going to use the little toe edge of your foot to scoop some sand in toward the center. So your little toe foot side is gathering the sand, you're scooping it in. And then once you've gotten there, lift the toes again, pivot back out to the right, drop the little toe edge of the foot, use the whole edge of the foot to scoop some sand in toward the center. Lift the toes, pivoting out,
And
drop, use the edge of the foot to scoop the sand. Your knee really isn't moving. This is all happening below. So if I use my hand here as an example, here's my heel. I'm pivoting out, and then I'm just using this edge of my foot to scoop the sand in. So it's that kind of scooping motion. And you're keeping your knee fairly quiet so that all the action is happening really in the ankle. So I'll show it one more time. Let me show it on this. So we're lifting the foot, we're pivoting it, we're dropping the little toe edge of the foot and scooping the sand in.
And then you lift your foot and turn your foot out.
So so the start of the movement is to lift the foot, turn the foot out, drop the little toe edge of the foot, scoop the sand, and then you go ahead and start over. Lift the toes, pivot out, scooping in, lift, pivot, drop, scoop. Okay, and now we're going to do the opposite one. So now lift the toes. So you're only touching with your heel. Pivot the toes in. In is always toward the midline. Knees quiet. This is all happening down below the knee. Drop the big toe side of the foot and push the sand away out to the right. So you're using the big toe side of your foot to push the sand back out. If I show you on my foot, you're lifting the foot, you're dropping and pushing the sand out, the big toe side of the foot. Lift the foot, bring the toes in, pivot the toes so they're pointing in toward the midline. Drop the edge of the foot on the big toe side and push the sand out. Lift the foot, turn the toes in. Foot stays, the heel of the foot is always going to stay planted. Okay, and then relax that. Someone just put in the chat that they're finding it really cool that when I taught this maybe a year ago, that he's finding he can do a lot more than he could the first time. So, you know, he's been practicing for a while. So now he's acknowledging and noticing how so much more is easy for him than it was the first time he learned it. So straighten your legs for a minute. And we've done quite a bit on the right side. Let's just sense and feel. Kind of give ourselves a moment to really digest that. And paying attention, what am I aware of? What's the differences that I'm perceiving on my right side compared to my left side? Is there any difference in the organization of the whole way that the right leg is making contact with the floor compared to the left? And then just sensing the aliveness. Kind of, do I feel, what's the sensation in my foot? Is it tingly? Is it warm? Is it crampy? Is it, what's going on there? What's it feel like? Without judging it, just becoming curious about what you're sensing. Before we make a commentation about what we're sensing, the sensing is the direct experience. That's you experiencing life in a physical body. That's direct experience, and that's what we're staying with, rather than making a comment about it. It's like, I just want to feel it directly, purely. Okay, let's go to bending your knees again, and we'll play on the left side. So we began our journey with lifting just the left heel, keeping the toes contacted to the earth, and pivoting the heel out to the left and lowering it back down. And then sliding it back to the center. So the heel lifts, the heel pivots out to the left, dropping the heel and sliding it back into the center. And again, seeing, can I for now just keep the knee as quiet as possible so that I'm really working with these intrinsic ligaments, muscles, everything around the ankle joint and the foot and the heel. And now let's go the other direction. So lift the heel, pivot the heel in toward the midline, drop it and slide it back in. Okay, now go ahead and lift the heel, toes are planted, and just pivot in and out. So you're just swinging the heel is lifted, you're swinging it out, you're swinging it in. And then relax. Now, remember that what we did was explore the differentiation between toes and ball of foot. So I asked you to come onto the ball of your foot, like you're putting your foot in a high heel shoe. So the heel's lifted, you're on the ball. And now see if while you're on the ball, can you lift your toes? So toes lift and lower, noticing that you can move your toes and the ball is just staying where it is. All right, so now that you know how to do that, we can go ahead and lower the heel and see if now, can you just lift your toes by themselves and then lift the ball and then lower the ball and lower the toes. Toes lift, ball lifts, ball lowers, toes lower. This is really preparing your foot for what it has to do through a full, taking a step to move forward. We want to be able to move through the ball and through the toes, not just lift and plant the foot, but have a whole roll through the foot. So it is a spring system. And letting go of any frustration you might have at just, trying to do this, just getting into the mode of curiosity and wonder. I wonder if I can figure out a way to do this. It's like we tend to be so hard on ourselves when we're learning something that we haven't really ever developed the interest or capacity to do. And so cutting yourself a lot of slack. All right, so now we're going to go to the one where you're just lifting your big toe. All the other 4 toes are staying on without gripping, just they're there, they're planted, but you're just lifting your big toe. And if you can visualize that in your mind, that visualization of doing that, whether or not you think you are doing it, just the visualization of doing that is communicating from your brain to your body. You're sort of sending the signal, this is what I want you to do. So you're lifting just the big toe and lowering it. And now see if you can lift all the other toes. Keep only the big toe on the floor and lift the other toes. A little bit of a rolling in kind of emotion. And then see if you can go back and forth. So it's almost like you're rocking your foot, rocking it toward the big toe side where the toes lift, and rocking it toward the toes, letting the big toe lift. Think of your foot as like a little boat in the ocean, and it's just rocking side to side. Okay, and then relax that. And now we're going to go to the more challenging one for most of us, and that is one toe at a time, starting with your big toe, putting that imprint in the sand. Maybe each toe will get 3 opportunities to press down and release. Just a small impulse of movement, just the big toe 3 times. And then the next toe. You're not gripping with your toe, you're just imprinting it down. It's like if you had all 5 fingers on a different piano key and you just wanted to press that one piano key. And then the next one, the 3rd toe. You might become really interested in how each toe has its own sensation. It's almost like each toe has its own personality. It's actually, each toe connects to a different organ in the body. And then the last pinky toe. And then relax entirely. And keep your left knee bent and straighten your right leg. So we're going to do that sand scooping motion, starting with lifting the toes. And in this moment, when I say toes, it's not differentiating out the ball. So everything except the heel is lifting. So you're bending at your ankle joint. And see if you can do that grinding motion like you're grinding a cigarette butt into the earth. Toes pointing out, toes pointing in, knees staying quiet as best you can. Now, when you get to the place where your toes are pointing out away from the midline, so that's out to the left, drop the little toe side and scoop the sand in toward the center using the outside edge of your foot to be the scooper. Lift the foot, turn the toes out away from the midline. Drop the edge of the foot, scoop the sand in toward the center. Lift, turn the toes out, drop the edge, scoop the sand in toward the center. Good. Come back to neutral. And this time, lift the foot, turn the toes in toward the midline, drop the big toe side, use the big toe side of your foot, the inner arch, to push the sand out. This is how we balance the arches. Lift, pivot the toes in, drop the big toe side, push the sand out. Feel and sense everything that's alive in your foot, in your lower leg, in your ankle. Becoming fascinated with the sensations that your body is experiencing. Good. And then go ahead and straighten that leg and rest for a moment. Pause to really tune in and become aware of the sensations that you're feeling in your foot, your leg, the differences between the two sides. Just notice if you're still breathing. Sometimes we sort of put our breath on hold when we're learning something new. You might put your hand on your belly and just feel the rise and fall of your breath. So now we're going to begin to take what we've done on a very intrinsic level and integrate it with the knees and the hips, because small changes in the feet are huge for the rest of the body. So we want to integrate what we've done so that it starts to feel that everything is communicating clearly with each other. So I'm going to ask you, with your legs long, to turn both feet outward. So both feet are pointing away from the midline. And from here, see if you can begin to slide your knees to a bent open position, what I call a frog leg position. So your toes pointing out, and you're just kind of sliding your heels towards your butt. So the soles of your feet come together. And then from there, in that open knee position, frog leg with the soles touching, see what it's like to move within about 4 inches or so and bring your heels a little closer to your butt and a little farther away from your butt. So it's a sliding motion of your feet coming towards your butt and away from your butt. In whatever way feels comfortable for your hips. And you might begin to notice if there's any invitation that's arising for your spine to move. So you might begin to feel that there's a connection as you draw your heels toward your butt, that there's a feeling of your back arching a little. So let the spine arch to participate. And then as you move your heels away from your butt, that there's a feeling of your back kind of receding to the floor. So slowly and gently, just discovering in your own body. This is always the invitation to explore. We're not imposing or forcing anything on the body. We're investigating, exploring, and always moving toward what feels pleasurable as an orientation. We'll find a way, however small or big it is, for your body to explore what's pleasurable about this. And now come to just a sort of comfortable, neutral place. You're still in the same frog leg position. And see if you can lift your heels away from the floor, keeping your toes on the floor. So just maybe an inch or so, can your heels lift away from the floor? And then let your heels come back down and let your toes lift away from the floor. So your toes more or less point up toward the ceiling. And then notice again, as you rock back and forth between lifting the heels and lifting the toes, how your back is moving. And invite your back to rock with this motion. For most people, when you lift your toes, your back is going to arch a little, so your belly sticks out. And when you lift your heels, your back sort of flattens more, so the belly draws in. So you're just including the pelvis, rocking the pelvis as you're rocking your feet.
Interesting to me that I tend to do it the wrong way around.
You tend to what?
It feels like I want to flatten with my toes up and my.
Okay,
I'm
so
like,
maybe your body is suggesting a different pattern. That's fine, but explore both. Say what happens if I try it the other way, so that you can give yourself an option to choose what feels more organically natural and pleasurable to you.
Yeah, it just makes me laugh because it's
yeah. Yeah, so there's, with movement, there's no right or wrong, unless you're just not listening and you're sort of overriding your body's impulse. It's like getting curious about, oh, my body tends to like it this way. Oh, that's great. What happens if I try it the other way? And then I have a choice. Okay, and now slowly lower the legs back to straight. And go ahead and bend your left knee, so you're standing on your foot. Take your left hand, so now we're going to include it. We've integrated it into the hips. We're going to integrate it into the spine and all the way up to the neck. They have found that like sometimes if somebody gets in a car accident and they slam their foot on the brake and it jams their foot, the talus bone especially, which is the main weight-bearing bone, that will have an effect all the way in the neck. So someone will be complaining of neck pain after a car accident, and it's actually because the talus bone is jammed. And so chiropractors will keep adjusting the neck, but it's actually happening at the other end. So there's a huge relationship between the neck and the foot. So you're standing on the left foot, the knees pointing toward the ceiling, and your hand is just on your forehead on the left. This time, roll toward the outside edge of your left foot. And now we're not going to be so concerned about keeping the knee quiet. We're getting to more of a bigger movement. So roll to the inside edge of your foot and just let your knee start to follow. Rolling outside edge of foot, rolling inside edge of foot. And then I'd like you to invite this all the way up your spine so that your head and your knee are both going in the same direction. So it starts with the roll of the foot, the knee follows, and then the head is going to just roll to the same side that your knee, and your hand, your left hand is on your head, forehead, and it's just kind of helping to guide. If you're on the right side, we're on the left side, just want to be clear. Whatever knee is bent, that's the hand that's on your forehead. So if you have your right knee bent and you're on the opposite side, then that's okay, but just make sure it's your right hand that's on your forehead. But for those of you that have your left knee bent, it's your left hand on your forehead. You're rolling to the inside edge of your foot, your knees following. You're rolling to the outside edge of your foot, your knees following, and your head is going with your knee. And just feel how far do I want to go? How much is available to me? What happens if? That's my favorite question. It invites exploration. What happens if I let my pelvis really feel like it's rocking side to side? What does my other leg need to do to help support this movement? Just a gentle, it's a comforting movement. There's no effort here really. It's just this gentle, like you're rocking side to side. Staying in touch with your slow and steady breath. So let's switch the hand position so that your right hand is on your forehead and your right knee is bent. Remember, it starts with the rolling of the foot. So you're rolling the foot in, which is sending a message to the knee to follow, which is inviting the hip to follow, which brings in the spine, which then follows through with the head roll. The left leg is straight, the right knee is bent. just feeling that rolling across the backside of the pelvis. Okay, beautiful. Finish the one that you're on. Straighten your legs. Just taking a somatic moment to sense and feel the effect of that movement. So there's a couple of things I would like to do in the standing position. So now that we've really shifted and awoken some things in the feet, it's good to bring all that into gravity, into standing on our feet. So when you feel ready to transition, please come to stand. And it's going to be useful, if you can, to use a wall. So I'm going to angle my camera so it's facing a wall so that Bruce can demonstrate this. This is one of the best movements we can do for really releasing the tension in the calf muscles, which tends to be a really common thing, and which has the effect of that whole plantar fascia, which is the fascia on the bottom of your foot. It can tend to get really taut and cause problems on the bottom of the foot, inflammation, and something called plantar fasciitis. This helps to release all that, and we're going to be working with the toes as well. So let me make sure you can all see. So the first thing, you've found a wall somewhere. You can also use a door. If you don't have a wall space, just make sure the door is closed tight. And place your hands on the wall so that I'm gonna say how high, as high as your shoulders. So you don't want it above your shoulders or below your shoulders. Your hands would be right in front of your shoulders. So that's the first thing. Now we'll start on the right side. So you're going to take one big giant step back with your right leg. So that it's a little bit, your heel can still touch, but it's a little bit of a reach for your heel to touch. That's how, now you probably noticed that the front knee had to bend in order for you to make that reaching motion with your back foot. So that's correct. Let your front knee be bent, which is your left one. Now, this has a number of little components to it, so stay with me, but you'll get the hang of this. I want you to, so we're only working with the right side right now, the back leg. I want you to come way up onto the tippy toes of your back leg. So you're lifting your heel away from the floor so that you're way as high as you comfortably can be on your tippy toes. Now, grip the toes of all 5 toes like you're trying to squeeze the floor with all 5 toes, and see if you can get all 5 of them engaged, even the little toe. Now, Slowly release the grip of your toes and start to lower the heel of the right foot toward the floor as you push the wall away from you with your hands. And you'll probably feel that in your calf muscle. It's getting actually to the soleus, which is the deepest calf muscle. You're pushing the wall. We're not done yet. This is the clincher. I want you to see if you can lift the toes of your right foot away from the floor, even if it's just a little bit. And that's deep, I know. Roll to the outside and the inside arch of that foot. So roll to the big toe side a little, roll to the outside. Just kind of massaging that calf muscle open, and then relax your toes back down. Okay, we're going to go through it again. Step 1, come way up onto the tippy toes of your right foot. And you probably noticed you had to straighten your left leg, which is exactly how the body works. So your left leg straightened in order to help you come onto the tippy toes of your right foot. Grip the floor with all 5 toes like you're squeezing it. Engage every single toe. Release the grip of your toes. Let the heel of the right foot find the floor as you push the wall away from you. And then the cherry on the cake is to lift the toes of your right foot if you can. If you can't do that, that's okay. Just even thinking about doing it a little bit is already working. Roll to the outside of your arch, the inside, little toe side, big toe side, kind of oscillate back and forth. Good. And relax that. Give yourself a little break. Take your hands away from the wall and just stand on your 2 feet for a moment and just notice, is there any difference between the grounding, the rootedness? You might just take a few steps and walk around in a circle and just feel, because it can often feel dramatically different. Okay, let's do, and when you do this at home, I usually do 3 on each side. 3 is a good number to really do this, to really get the information. We're just doing 2 on each side right now. So hands on the wall at shoulder height. So we're starting with the front knee is bent. So the front knee being your right knee, the back knee leg being your left one. You're coming way up onto the tippy toes of your left foot. And notice that the right one had to straighten. That's the way the body works together. Grip all 5 toes. Squeeze your toes, engage your toes. Like you're trying to grip the floor or the carpet. Release the grip, spread your toes, and push the wall away from you as your heel reaches to touch the floor. Front knee is bending. Of course, the more you kind of let it bend, the more you're going to feel it on your left side. Now, going to the last part, which is lifting the toes as best you can. The ball stays on the foot. The ball stays on the floor. The toes are lifting, and then you're going to alternate, oscillate, inside arch, outside arch. Just working with that back leg. Okay, Coming into it again, way up onto the toes. Try to really get that bend if you can. If you don't have a foot issue that's limiting you from doing that, really getting the bend in the toes by coming way up onto your tiptoes on the left foot. Grip the floor with all 5 toes, squeezing the carpet or the floor. Feel them, feel the whole bottom of your foot. Release the grip, spread the toes. Let the heel find the floor, reaching to touch it as you push the wall away from you. You're sending this is communicating down the whole back of your spine. Now, the last part, which is kind of intense, lift the toes of the left foot, keep the ball on the floor, rolling outside arch, inside arch. Just exploring, oh, what feels like it's releasing. Good. And then relax that, take a few steps around and just feel and sense how that informed your walk. I often, when I do this, I feel like my legs just got a whole lot lighter. Okay, there's one more really important thing for balancing the tripod of the foot that I really want to get to today, and I think we have just enough time to do it. It is precise, but you guys can get this. So we'll do it standing, since we're going to feel how to organize the feet so that your foot actually, can you all see how this foot, if you really look at it, it might have the shape of what would be a kidney bean. You know how a kidney bean kind of has that curve? That's sort of the image we're going to use in finding this tripod where our feet are balanced on the heel, the inside, and the outside toe. So starting with your toes a little bit, not like pigeon-toed, but just a little bit turned in. Let's just do one foot. So we'll start with the right foot. Turn the right toes. So lift your heel a little bit, just a pivot, tiny bit, so the toes are pointing in slightly. That's the first thing. Toes of the right foot are pointing in slightly. Okay. Now, so the foot is going to stay on the floor. I want you to lift your heel. So the heel of the foot is going to start to take your hand and put it on your thigh, your right thigh. So this is just a little hard to describe, but I think I can do a good enough job so you can feel this. So lift your heel and see if as you bring your heel slightly in toward the midline, that you can take your thigh and kind of steer it so it's pointing out. So the thigh is sort of being rotated outward. And then lower your heels. So you'll find your heels a little bit more toward the center line than your toes are. And then without any gripping of your toes, see if from that position you can kind of start to sense the tripod. So you've got your heel, your little toe side, and your big toe side. Might feel like for a lot of people, it feels like more weight is more on the little toe side. And that's okay, because in the standing position, we actually have a part of our foot that's a standing foot, and a part of our foot that's involved in motion, which is the big toe side. So in our standing position, we actually want to have this feeling of a little bit more of a kidney bean shape and a little bit more access to that outside edge of the foot. So you can look down at your foot and see, did that kind of change the shape so that it more resembles a kidney bean? So let's do this a couple times so this gets even more clear. So we started with just a slight orientation of the toes in. You placed your hand on your thigh, on the right thigh, so that when you lift your heel and started to bring the heel in, that the thigh actually kind of rolls out. And then you place your heel back down so the heel is more in. And then just kind of relax into that and see if you can feel the tripod. And you might just look and see if the shape of your foot changed in any way to have more of a kidney bean shape. Because oftentimes if there's any flat-footedness, we're too rolled into the big toe side of the foot. Let's do one more on that side, starting with the toes in. This is how you can begin to correct a lot of foot problems. So we lifted the heel, we started to just roll the thigh out as the heel comes in, creating that lift in the arch, and then settling into it. If you find that your big toe kind of slid in toward the center, just spread the toes a little and discover for yourself, where is that tripod? See those 3 points of the triangle. And just then notice, compare where you are now on your right foot to where you are on your left foot. It's a good practice to do throughout the day, just here and there, just to begin to train the foot how to then feel those 3 points of contact. Okay, let's go to the left side. Put your left hand kind of on your thigh, starting with the toes pointing a little bit in. Lift the heel. Keep the ball of the foot on the floor, but pivot the heel in as the thigh gets sort of turned, like you're steering your thigh so it's rolling out. Replace the heel. And then feel the 3 points of contact. And kind of oscillate between all three until you feel that you're aware of all 3 points. Okay, again, hand on your thigh, toes start pointing in just a little. See the shape of a kidney bean. Lift the heel, pivot the heel in, roll the thigh a little out, clamp the heel back down, relax the toes, let them feel that spreading but anchored points of contact. Good, and then just one more time on your own, so you really get this. Toes a little in, lift the heel, pivot the heel in, kind of rolling the thigh out, placing the heel down, and just feel the lift of the arch. And then from there, just stand and just perceive where you are in your legs, in your feet. Place your thumb again on your navel and your fingers on your abdomen. And just sensing the awareness of your center as it relates to your feet and your legs. This is your core. And dropping into that real sense of being grounded. Just letting your eyes connect to the environment from this grounded place, looking around at the space that you're in, just noticing anything that gets your attention, anything your eyes feel attracted to, that invite your gaze. Something that might just have a nice color or a shape. Becoming extraordinarily fascinated with something in your environment that feels like an object you want to connect to through your visual sense. Then let your eyes gaze around, let them wander. Perhaps there's something else that feels interesting. Pausing to drink in whatever is nourishing for you in this moment. Beautiful. And when you're ready, you can come back to your sitting position. I'm going to turn off the recording, and I'm just would love to hear anybody's experience or any questions you might have, or